Hello. I'm excited to be here in New York because I just moved from New York 2 weeks ago, and it made it so easy to leave knowing that I was coming right back. And it feels really good and weird to be in a hotel in Midtown rather than my home, which I miss already. So let's get started. First, before I really get into anything, I just kind of want to talk about the fact that a lot of times when you see somebody on stage, you think, oh, that's somebody to look up to, or they're giving me lots of tips. I'm not that person at all. You probably won't need to take any notes. I'm not going to speak very eloquently. In fact, I don't ever prepare my talks at all. I don't rehearse them. So I'm just going to be kind of talking out of my butt a little bit. I also say butt a lot when I'm nervous, so that's probably going to happen too. So let's just move on. But what you need to know is that I'm going to kind of share some personal information with you all. I'm going to tell you some things that I haven't really told anyone before, and I'm going to be kind of talking about everything that's wrong with me and how I leverage those things to make myself a better designer and to have a really happy and wonderful career. So let's get started. Hello, I'm Meg. I am a designer currently living in Minneapolis, but my company is based here in New York and we have an office here. This talk is not about my work at all, so this is my work. I'm going to let it cycle through. This way you can judge me based on my work, and you can decide whether or not you want to leave now, or we could show time at the Apollo this, and you can just pull me out, stand up and boo me. That's cool too. Cycled through, so let's move on. All right, so this is me as a child. I grew up in Kansas City and in Fort Worth, Texas, and I had pretty much an average childhood for any sort of lower middle class income family. I didn't really have many toys. For some reason, I didn't like playing with toys. I just liked using my imagination. And the coolest part of my childhood was that I had parents that really, really loved me. And they kind of led me to believe that I could do anything, which was really great. I feel very fortunate for that. But as I got older, like a lot of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s, I got really into pop culture, and I started developing these sort of childhood idols, these heroes that I looked up to. I'll quickly go through the list. That's Pee Wee Herman, Mr. Bean, who I'm Mr. Bean's #1 fan, Lucille Ball, Steve Martin, Kel Mitchell, and especially Miss Doubtfire. So I developed these idols, these people that I wanted to be just like these people. And I realize now that these are exaggerated versions of humans. These are like everyday people we normally see, but there's a little bit of something special to them. And they're kind of like caricatures, really. And so fast forward to a little bit later, I became exactly that. I became an exaggerated version of a human. On the left-hand side is an average Meg outfit when I was a kid. I think I was channeling Carrot Top. I would loved Carrot Top and Al Borland at the same time. And my parents let me dress myself. I got made fun of so much, but it made me so much stronger, I guess. I don't know. On the right-hand side is an average Meg Halloween costume. I sort of pulled together everything I had in my closet. That year, I think I was some sort of short, round, old, bald man or something. You know, as I was a kid, I started interacting with more and more adults, my teachers, my family, and I started realizing how freaking boring adults are. My dad would come home from a business trip or from a day at work, and he would tell these elaborate stories about how he was in line at the bank and there would be some guy behind him, and the guy was in a hurry and he was touching him in line, and he wanted to get through, and this guy was being rude and he was on the phone. And to my dad, that was so exciting. He was so excited to come home and tell my mom about it, and because he was just so worked up about it. And that was the most exciting thing that happened to him all day. And I remember at that specific moment when he told that story, thinking, adults are so boring. Why is this a cool story? And now that I'm an adult, I find myself telling stories like this all the time. We all do. And it's just weird and dumb. So yeah, I realized that adults are freaking boring, and I didn't want to be a boring adult. So as a kid, I came up with this idea to be like the most fun person who ever lived. And that's pretty lofty goals for someone who's like 8 or 9. But at the time, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an exaggerated version of a human. And I was like totally pumped on that and whatever. So fast forward until I got to puberty. And that's when I realized that I had a problem. I started developing this weird inability to feel specific negative emotions, and I didn't realize it until we got to that age where kids started to get in their first fights and arguments with each other, and they started to get frustrated or fighting over people they had crushes on, and people would get mad at me for doing little things, and I didn't understand. I didn't get it. Nothing bothered me and nothing annoyed me, and I didn't understand why I couldn't relate or get what these people were feeling. And I realized eventually that I ended up finding out that I have a neurological anomaly that doesn't allow me to feel certain negative emotions. And so that led me to feeling like a huge outsider for most of my life, especially when I was a teenager. I didn't understand, I didn't fit in because I couldn't relate to people, and I found myself pretending to be mad. Even today, like I moved to Minnesota, and small talk, everybody wants to talk about the winters there, and even me, I go, oh yeah, the winters there are the worst. Winter's the worst. But I actually really love winter. And so I find myself still today pretending to be upset about things and pretending to be angry just to make people like me more and just to feel like a regular person. And that's weird and dumb. So a couple years ago, my mom called me up and she said, Meg, I think I know what's wrong with you. I just read about this and I think you're a star person. And she told me that a star person is this old Native American belief that star people travel to this world from others, and their kind of mission here on Earth is to inject the world with kindness and an overall positive demeanor. And star people, when sprinkled throughout the world, make the world a happier place. And so obviously my mom's crazy, I'm not a star person, but then she said, wait, hold on, let me read you these characteristics of a star person. And so she started reading them off to me. She said, okay, lower than normal body temperature. That's kind of weird because I've been chilling at a 97 my whole life. So, okay, yeah, I do have a lower than normal body temperature. And then she said they're usually female, check. They have swollen or painful joints. I don't know who came up with this information. I don't know if you can see my knees, but my knees hurt so bad right now and always because they are swollen. They're short. I am very short. And they usually occupy a creative profession, which I do. Okay, so it's a little weird how similar I might be to the characteristics of a star person, but it is absolutely insane to think that I'm a star person, so let's just completely ignore that. I am not a star person, that's crazy. But I got really excited by their life purpose of injecting the world with small acts of kindness and having an overall positive demeanor to make the world a slightly happier place. And I had to think, like, I've never really had a life purpose before. I've never even really thought about having a purpose. I was getting caught up in my regular issues, my life, my work, and I never really thought that I could make my life really mean something or really have an impact on the world. And so when she told me about their life purpose, as crazy as it is to be a star person, which I'm not, I love their life purpose, and that's totally cool, and I want that life purpose. All right, so then I had to realize, this thing about me, the fact that I can't feel certain negative emotions, maybe this weird and stupid and dumb thing that I've always been trying to hide from people is actually something that I have that no one else has. And maybe I can use that as sort of a superpower, and I can do things that no one else can do with it. So really quickly, I want you all to think of 3 things about yourself that make you different from anyone else. I'm going to give my own examples after we do this, but it's really important for you guys to all think about what are those things in your life that people have told you are wrong with you, the things that people have said makes you different than everyone else, maybe the things people have made fun of you for. So just take a hot second to think about 3 things. You can tell you're thinking. I paid for this song. Money well worth spent. All right, so I'm going to go through some examples for myself. I don't like to ever tell anyone how to live their life or what to do, so what I like to do is lead through example and kind of tell you how I apply this to my life, and hopefully you get something out of it. If not, it's totally fine. So for me, 3 things about me that are different than anyone else is that the first thing is that I'm extremely unprofessional all the time, which means that I would be a terrible employee, and I've actually never had a full-time job. I've always been a freelancer for this exact reason. I'm extremely unprofessional. I have a really hard time separating my business life and my work from my personal life. I can't believe I put pleasure, Meg, on a slide. Oh my, Maybe that's not the worst part about that slide. So I've never been able to really separate business from pleasure. And what that means is on social media and in my real life and when I'm at work meetings, I have a really hard time being a curated version of myself, if that makes sense. So I have a hard time trying to be this specific version of myself in all these different places. Rather, I kind of just blurt things out and I'm just being myself all the time. Like, for example, I should be here speaking on stage about technology and probably product design, but here I'm showing you slides of me making dumb faces. So on social media, it's a great example because my clients are on Twitter. I teach college class, my students are on Twitter, my in-laws are on Twitter, but yet I spend most of my time tweeting about butts and tweeting about stupid things that relate to butts and posting photos of myself that are extremely unflattering, which I'll get to later. But people are constantly making me feel bad about this, and people pull me aside and they're like, I don't really think you should be tweeting about those things because aren't your clients seeing that? Don't you think you're losing business by being so unprofessional? And to that I say, if those people are turned off by me, then I don't really want to work with them anyway. So it works for me. Another way that I don't separate my business life from my personal life is that I created a company a few years back called Ghostly Ferns, and we are a sort of a collective, sort of an agency of freelancers, and we all specialize in different things, and we work together whenever possible. And these people were actually my best friends before we started working together, and then we teamed up. And the great thing about this is that we work in the same space together. I work next to my best friends every day, and I spend every day with my best friends, and we get some work done at the same time. It's so great. And secondly, my husband is also a part of Ghostly Ferns. So I have always worked with my husband since we both graduated school together, we started freelancing together, and we work together as often as possible. We've always sat next to each other every single day. And a lot of times people say, I don't understand how you can work together. My husband annoys me too much. I don't think we could spend that much time together. But I married him, I love him, and so I do actually want to spend every day with him. And the fact that he sits next to me means we can like cuddle while we're working, which is really cool, like spoon working, it's fantastic. But here, this is the first photo we took together. This is our homecoming dance. It's embarrassing. I have an extreme farmer's tan from band camp. There he is in the middle looking cool, and there's us doing a face swap because him as a woman is fantastic. All right, so again, separating work from pleasure or personal life is hard for me, and I also have this thing where I want my work to never feel like work. I want my work to feel like an extension of my life or just something that I'm having a really good time doing. And so I'm lucky enough to be able to get to a point now where I can make sure that any project that I work on, I'm having a really good time doing it. And so I want my work to never really feel like work, because when it doesn't feel like work, then I do so much better work. Like, it's so great to put out really good work when you're having a good time. All right, so the second thing that's different about me, as you probably can tell, I have a problem where I'm just way too honest about myself all the time. I think it's a nervous mechanism to where I feel like I give too much information away about myself just to make other people maybe feel more comfortable. I have no idea why I do it, but I can't stop doing it. I'm constantly telling people too much detail about my life, and I keep giving away intimate details about things you don't want to know about, and that's okay because I figured out how to a way to make it work for me. But a couple of ways that I do this in my life is like I'm constantly posting photos of myself that look terrible because I get really excited when I look horrible in a photo. I get just as excited about that as when I look really amazing in a photo, and so I have to share it all the time. And that Microsoft generator that guessed how old you are, when I was looking beautiful and awesome, it got pretty close, but then when I looked disgusting, it shaved years off of my life. Nothing is better than looking gross. All right, so another thing, this is an experiment. I think everybody is generally self-conscious. That's a normal part about being a human. I too have been very self-conscious throughout my life, and especially when it came to dancing. I had never danced in public my whole life. I would never have. Too embarrassed, I didn't know what I was doing. I thought everybody would be looking at me, as I'm sure a lot of people think when they try to dance for the first time. So I decided last year to finally dance at a party. So I was at this house party, there was music playing, and I started dancing for the first time. And I chose a party for some reason where no one else was dancing. I don't know why I did that, but I started dancing, and nobody said the things to me that I thought they would say. Nothing bad happened. In fact, people were just like, oh, look at you go. And it was great. So I started going to more things, and I started dancing a little bit more and a little bit more, until finally I decided to dance for the internet, because I knew those people are the most judgmental people, let's face it. So I thought, you know what, if I'm really bad, people will tear me apart, and then I'll find out how that feels, and I'll go from there. So I posted a video of myself dancing online, and I'm going to play you just like a short clip from that. I also dubbed it over with some different music for dramatic effect. Thank you. Oh my goodness. I learned through filming myself dance that the key is to smile while you're dancing, because the first many takes, I was like, what is wrong with me? I look really weird. And once I started smiling while I was dancing, everything changed. So try it out. Unless you want to look seductive, which I think a lot of people do while they're dancing, I would not recommend smiling. All right, so also, I am definitely not ashamed of the things that I love. And I think a lot of people talk to me about the fact that, oh, I love Burger King so much. It's right down the street from me, and I go there 3 times a week, but I don't tell anyone about it, and I make sure nobody sees me. And I don't do that. When I love something, I tell everyone about it because it is really awesome. And a perfect example of that, especially being in New York, is Olive Garden. Because people, if you live in New York, if you go talk to New Yorkers, it is not cool to like Olive Garden. People hate Olive Garden here, and probably in most major cities. But I grew up on that stuff. So in the top left corner is the only thing I've ever gotten at Olive Garden, the cheese ravioli with marinara sauce. I've probably eaten it at least 200 times. Let's not forget the endless salad and breadsticks, obviously. And then bottom left is actually my childhood Olive Garden in Independence, Missouri. That Olive Garden is where my husband and I went on our first dates together. I went to many after-school activities, and then we would go to Olive Garden immediately after. I went on so many important and memorable meals with my grandmother there, and it's a place where I've made a lot of memories, and the food is really good, okay? It's delicious. I love cheese. So the coolest thing to me about Olive Garden is their motto. When you're here, your family. It's beautiful, right? The most beautiful company slogan I've ever heard. If you tacked that on to generate, when you're here, your family, people would be like, oh my God, that's beautiful. And so Olive Garden, you have to applaud for their courageous efforts there. So the last thing about me that's different that people like to complain to me about or to tell me I need to change about myself is the fact that I love change. I'm constantly addicted to change. I don't ever use the same shampoo twice. I don't walk the same way to work twice in a row. I never have had like the same hairstylist twice because I like to change things up. And I'm constantly moving and changing my environment because of that, because I love change. And it's been extra prevalent in my career. So after school, I started off as a web designer, which is what I wanted to do. And then I moved to New York. And as people do in New York, when they start working for startups, I became a UI designer. And then, as people do when they start working for startups in New York, startups can't afford a UX designer, so then they make the UI designer figure it out. So after years of being a UI designer for startups, I realized, oh, I'm a pretty good UX designer. I actually know what I'm talking about now. And then a few years passed, and all of a sudden I looked at my portfolio and realized that my portfolio was full of brand design work. When did I become a brand designer? Cool, whatever, I guess I'm a brand designer. And then after doing brand design for a while, I fell into kind of a strategy role for companies and realized I really liked being a brand strategist. And so today, I don't like to do the same thing twice in a row. I like to mix it up and have projects where I'm kind of doing one of everything. And that way it keeps things exciting and really interesting. Because I think maybe when people do one thing for too long, that's how they get burnout. And I don't want to get burnout. I like what I do too much. So I also can't stop changing my environment. I don't know how anybody does it. There are so many awesome cities in the world, and how do you just pick one and stay there forever? I don't know, but I want to try all of them. So I keep moving around, and my husband has come everywhere with me, and it's been great. And so I just moved back to Minneapolis 2 weeks ago. I had lived there for a year before, and it's just so awesome. And I think the first thing that everyone told me when I told them I was moving away from New York to Minneapolis is like, oh, what are you going to do with your business? That sounds so scary. You're so brave. How are you going to make it work? And I don't know. I'm just going to make it work. I'll figure it out when I get there. And it's not the easiest thing to try to move from New York to another state, but I'm figuring it out, and it's going to be fine. All right, because I have to know that nothing has to be permanent. And I think that's the thing, and the reason why people don't like to change is because they think that if they buy a house or they move to a different city, then that's a permanent thing and they have to stay there forever. I just bought a house, and people like to make me feel like, oh, I need to stay there for decades. And for me, if I don't like that house in a couple of years, I'll just sell it and I'll move somewhere else. It's fine. Nothing has to be permanent. All right, so I quickly put these in just like 2 minutes ago because I want people to understand, like, I'm being extra vulnerable, whatever, I'm telling you too much information, but some other things that make me different so that you can kind of maybe feel better about your differences. I don't know. Again, I've actually never been angry. That is a fact. If you want to talk to me after this about that, you can, but if you try to make me angry, you probably won't. I have a weird thing where I don't ever cry from sad things for some reason, but happy thing, I'm trying not to cry if I think about the things that make me cry. So for some reason, mimes make me cry. I don't know why. I was born with this thing, so where if I see a mime on TV, I start crying. And some people have even told me that they were about to order me a mime, and then that makes me cry. And I've actually never seen a live mime before, and I'm so afraid to because what's going to happen to me if I see one in flesh? Oh God. So anyway, I also only work 3 to 4 hours a day. That's a weird thing about me. If I can get 3 to 4 hours of completely uninterrupted time where I can like go inside of the computer and work really hard, I get everything done for the day, and then I go and see a movie by myself. It's great. And also, I'm allergic to almost everything that Earth has to offer, including fruits and vegetables and the dirt and the trees and the grass and probably the air and everything else. Cats especially, but I have cats. Like, I eat it all, I drink it all. It doesn't matter. Being allergic to something doesn't mean you can't have it. I have made it work. Maybe I'm not from this planet, I don't know. So I want you all to think about those things about you that are different than everyone else, and think about maybe how to use those things as actual superpower to get what you want. And I'm gonna move on to work stuff now, but before I do, I want a little intermission where I show you my favorite internet video.
When I'm with friends, I like to have fun. I like to sing, dance, pretend, and kazoo. Just kazoo it. Can everyone say hi to my friend?
Hello, I'm Hilda.
Jonathan.
I'm Carl.
It's just so good. All right, so let's talk about that purpose. I have life purpose, whatever. How do I apply that to my work? How do I actually make like some sweet, sweet cash while also making the world a happier place? So for me, what I figured out, and this has all come up within the past couple of years, I've tried to figure this out and apply it to my life. The first thing I do is I decided that I only want to work with a specific kind of company, and that kind of company is a term I made up called happy companies. So a happy company to me is any company who is working to make the world a healthier or happier place, and that can be through their product or service itself, or it can be through their company culture. And so a few examples of common happy companies I think you should all be familiar with are MailChimp. MailChimp's dealing with something extremely boring. newsletter campaigns, email marketing. That's not sexy, that's not happy, it's boring, it's sad. But MailChimp is such a happy company. Their employees love working there. They treat their employees so well. They treat the design community so well. They treat Atlanta so well, and everyone loves them, and they love everyone, and it's so sweet. Headspace is a mental health and wellness app, making the world, a little bit more familiar with meditation, and that's really important. And they use illustration and they use friendly, personable design to kind of put that across. BarkBox, obviously a happy, healthy place for dogs. And then Cards Against Humanity is my favorite example because the company itself is actually kind of a douchebag, right? But they're poking fun at themselves, and if any of you have ever played Cards Against Humanity with relatives that are super conservative or that don't have a sense of humor, it's hilarious. And you find out that everyone actually does have a sense of humor and doesn't mind talking about weird stuff. And I just love that Cards Against Humanity is doing that for the world. So I also started designing specifically for positive emotion. Most happy companies, I'm lucky enough that I found that they want to seem very fun. They want to seem personable. They want to seem approachable. And they also want their users to feel happy because they care about their users. So I designed specifically for positivity in users. And the way that I do it is extremely simple. I go back to those times when you were a baby, when you were a toddler, growing up and experiencing the world for the first time, when you're experiencing colors, shapes, tactile things, and you're seeing faces that are telling you how to feel. I think this is sort of layman's introduction to positivity and design, but it's important because it's so easy to invoke positivity in users, and brands just really aren't doing this. But we're entering into a time now where people are recognizing that illustration is important, and creating an environment for happiness is actually very important to make people like their products. Seems kind of common sense to me. So lastly here, I give away my work for free, and that's not all the time. I need to make money. But I think this is a hot topic issue because it's really important that we, as designers, get what we're worth, and we are valued in our industry, and we're not lowering the bar there. And I give my work away for free whenever I can to nonprofits, to organizations that otherwise couldn't afford a good designer, or they can't afford design at all. And these are causes that are important to me, and it's important for me to give them my services. It's my way of being able to volunteer and to be able to help. So I don't want to toot my own horn. So I'm just going to quickly go through a couple of examples so that maybe you can figure out what's important to you. For me, I designed the brand for a company called Daily Lemonade. They're a news organization that is focusing only on positive news, and they don't care at all about clickbait, and they don't want to make any money, and it's a thing of beauty. Just getting positive news, it's just made my life so much happier. And also, NYC Mayor Bill de Blasio hired me. Poor guy, had no money. And he wanted to create a website for himself for this initiative that he started called Cities for Action. It's so cute. He had a personal project. And so Cities for Action is a community for progressive mayors in the US. And as someone who comes from online communities, I know how important it is to kind of have a place where you can feel safe and comfortable to talk about things, and we know how raunchy and gross politics is. So Cities for Action is a great place for these mayors to be able to talk amongst themselves about really creating change and being progressive together. And I wanted to help out with that. All right, so you know what? I just want to make the internet fun again, and I feel like I can use my personality, I can use my life purpose to try and do that at least a little bit, because we all know how the internet looked in the 90s. It looked like this. Do you remember tinkering around and how exciting it was? Because you could do anything. You just thought that it was limitless. Any possibility, you could make it happen on the internet. And it was a place where you could really experiment and try new things and make some really awesome stuff. I mean, sure, it's ugly, but it was so exciting. And so I have this view of the internet that I share with this kid named Andrew from this early 90s internet tutorial video for children. So Andrew here, keep your eye on him. He has a great view of the internet, whereas the other kids, I feel like, represent society as a whole today.
The first thing that you need to know is that the internet is amazing and it's changing every day. Once you've learned how to get online yourselves, you'll start seeing web pages everywhere. TV shows have them, schools, Disney World, even the White House.
What's a web page? Something ducks walk on?
Ha ha, very funny. No, it's the name of the different sites you can look up on the internet.
Hold on, sis. Let's start at the beginning like Dad did with us.
Mansplainer.
So Andrew and Lisa will be able to persuade their parents about the internet with some important facts.
Good idea, Peter, but where do we start?
Let's start with the basics first. There are 3 important services you can access on the internet. Surfing the World Wide Web.
Surfing? That sounds pretty cool already.
Andrew, don't
does.
interrupt.
Andrew, I wonder where he is today. Is Andrew here? No. That's a shame. All right, so which of you made websites that looked like this at all? So did I. It was so fun. Everything could move. Everything could make sound. It was a beautiful time of self-expression. Yes, it was. You could take your personality and put it into a website, and all of the things you love could be on one place. It's the coolest thing ever. And today, we like to take like one tiny little thing on a website and we like to pull it apart and make sure that it makes 100% sense and works for everybody, which makes sense to me. But where is that sense of adventure? Like, I want to put that personality and that excitement and that fun back into the internet. I don't have a solution yet. I'll write a Medium post or something if I do. But I just want to make the internet fun again, which sounds a lot like Donald Trump's slogan, but that's okay. All right, so again, I'm just here to make the world a little bit more of a happy place, and that is my purpose here. And if I can do that in the smallest way, that's all that matters to me. And so please, I really, really urge you to try to find a life purpose for yourself. It's changed everything for me. It changed my self-esteem. It changed my outlook on life. I finally feel like I created a place where I belong for myself, and that's been so great. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have time for questions?
I don't know.
We don't know?
Yeah, we've got time for a few questions.
Okay, I have a question slide with some suggestions. I feel like I always want to ask a question, but then I can't really think of anything on the spot. So just in case someone needs an idea, or if you have your own, that's fine too. Does anyone have questions? Number 3. Oh, that's my favorite. Which person in the room would you least like to be your gynecologist? My sister and I play this game at the airport all the time. I think I might choose Gary because he was my academic advisor and my teacher in college. Sorry, Gary. Any other questions? The last one. If your butt cheeks could be replaced by any item, what item would you like to be? I thought about this a lot. My first instinct was memory foam, but then I realized that memory foam gets really brown over time. You know, like if you have a memory foam mattress pad, it kind of, your body oils sort of make it. So I feel like memory foam would be really gross. So maybe the hamburger buns that have that wonderful top layer that you can kind of pick off. I think I'd choose that because I'd probably snack on it. Yeah.
This has been so ballsy. I gotta ask though, have there ever been times where you're not making enough lights on, you ever get stare, like how did you combat that when those times?
Yes. So for years I worked on anything I could get, and I had unhappy clients and unhappy companies I was working for, and as you can probably tell by my personality, I don't have what's called a backbone, or I'm a pushover. So I would get these projects that I was just getting pushed around like crazy, but they were paying me money, and I'm so susceptible to taking on that kind of work. And luckily I've been able to keep enough steady work with the kinds of companies I want, but that was something that I changed after years of freelancing. So being able to identify the companies that I want to work for has been really great for me, but for many, many years I was struggling to make it work like everybody else. Anybody else? Yes.
Have you ever told a potential client that wouldn't work for them because they are not a happy company?
Yeah, actually, so what I do now is at meetings, the first meeting, I tell them, I do a thing where I say, this is me, this is the kind of company I work for, this is the kind of design I do, and if you don't match these values, then that's okay. I'll help you find a designer that would love to work with you. And I think that they like that because at least I'm helping them in a further direction, you know, like helping them out to find somebody else, and they totally understand why the relationship won't work as well. Anyone else? Yes?
How did you stay creatively inspired in your own personal work when you were working on clients that weren't happy for the longest time?
Yeah. I think side projects. I did a lot of side projects with, I joined a shared workspace as soon as I moved to New York, where I was working alongside a lot of people that would become my best friends and all the people that are now a part of my team at Ghostly Ferns now. And we would just collaborate on stuff all the time. It was really exciting having people in the same room as me that were doing really interesting things and had skills that I didn't have. So we made lots of personal stuff together. Anybody else? No. Okay. Thank you.